Rebuilding our harbors, one oyster at a time. The Billion Oyster Project is making it their goal to restore oyster reefs in the New York harbor. To date, they've returned 100 million oysters to the harbor and collected 2 million pounds of oyster shells with the help of 11,000 students and volunteers. Here with me to dive deeper into the benefits of this project is the Billion Oyster Project Director of Development, Brian Reagor. Brian, thank you so much for coming on the show. First of all, can you explain to everyone what the Billion Oyster Project is?
Sure, yeah, and thank you so much for having me today. As it says on the tin, on the front end is we are trying to put 1 billion oysters back into New York Harbor. So if you think about New York Harbor, it's helpful to think about it being too cold for coral reef. But the oysters were basically our coral reef. In fact, that they're the coral reef of every ecosystem north of Virginia. So we are trying to put 1 billion back in the water because that is basically what will it take to recreate that original population. And then it'll bring all the other wildlife and biodiversity back with it. The fish and the crab and the dolphins and the seals and everything we think about in terms of abundant ocean biodiversity is what is started by the oyster itself. So that's the first thing that we're doing. And then the second thing is we're hoping to engage 1 million New Yorkers in this process. We do that by working in over 100 public schools around the city, offering free STEM education activities on the waterfront for hundreds of classrooms to come down, learn about the oyster, learn about its world, and how their role in students' day-to-day actions have a real impact on their environment around them.
That's really cool. And I know that I read a little bit about it, not only will it improve the water ecosystem, but it's actually going to help our shorelines as well. Can you touch on that?
Absolutely. So, you touched on one thing that the oyster does that, an adult oyster at 3 years will clean 50 gallons of water a day. So 1 billion oysters is actually enough to clean the entirety of New York Harbor every 3 days. We've currently restored 136 million oysters to date, which is enough to clean basically the water body of the Chrysler building every single day. So that gives you kind of a filtration impact. But more than that, our shoreline used to be protected by these 3-dimensional oyster reefs. Unlike scallops or clams that also filter the water, oysters actually grow on top of each other and create that 3-dimensional reef structure. And studies have shown that oyster reefs in the wild reduce wave attenuation or wave force between 60 and 80%. So when you think about massive superstorms kind of coming into New York Harbor, Superstorm Sandy is a great example, right? We had these massive waves battering the shoreline. Oyster reefs historically would have been providing that protection. And so that's what we're building for now is, restoring shoreline through this kind of natural resilience layer.
You guys are very popular, so popular that you even had a celebrity visitor. Prince William came to look at what you guys are doing. That is so cool.
One of the cool things about what I get to do every day is just the amazing amount of public support we get. Everyone from, school students to 80-year-olds that I meet at weddings have a general understanding of what we do. But Prince William was certainly one of the really most interesting experiences. We really appreciated that the Kensington Palace and the Prince himself remained interested, excited for this opportunity to come out. And, we were absolutely honored to get 2.5 hours and show him our work. He met with students, he met with our staff, he saw the oyster reefs up close, and we hope that he left with a real understanding of what we're trying to do in New York City.
What was his verdict? What did he think about what you all were doing?
I think he liked it. He got a hat on, which we heard was a pretty rare feat to get him dressed up in the gear. But I think the most meaningful factor was, the next day he invited our executive director, Pete Malinowski, to attend the EarthShot Summit, which is, the Prince's Foundation's keystone environmental kind of grant giving mission. But it's really just also a way to get kind of like the people who are in the philanthropic and corporate space to start thinking about some amazing solutions that are being grown by nonprofits and for-profits around the world. And, inviting us into that room, I've been in a lot of rooms in New York City. I've been around a lot of people, but I was pretty blown away when I was standing next to a Bloomberg daughter and she couldn't get a seat. So that was a pretty cool room to be in.
Well, Brian Reagor, thank you so much for coming on, for talking with us about your Billion Oyster Project. It's awesome what you all are doing for the New York harbors.
Thanks for coming out. And listen, we're on the water 5 days a week. So if you're ever in New York City, we'd love to take you out and show you an oyster reef.
I would love that. Thank you for the invite.
Yeah. Cheers, guys.
And a few more details on what Brian was just talking about. Prince William visited New York for 2 days during Climate Week, a summit on climate action that takes place alongside the United Nations General Assembly. His first stop was to a pile of shells on Governor's Island donated by New York's finest dining establishments in solidarity with the Billion Oyster Project. Now, after returning some oysters to the harbor, he met with the UN Secretary General and announced his finalists for the EarthShot Prize, an award by the climate-focused charity that he founded in 2020, which gives the winner a £1 million prize to continue their environmental work. The winner will be announced at the EarthShot Prize ceremony in Singapore on November 7th.